Recently, I've had numerous conversations with people in regards to race and sexuality and religion and regards to choices that people make. And it amazes me how there is still a level of intolerance in all cases. We humans are just sands on the beach. There are other creatures in this universe that exist beside us. But we seem to have the most issues. Everything that we perceive as far as emotional, spiritual, and mental is always reduced down to something tangible, something that appeals to the five senses, and that's it. And that's what a disconnect is. The foolishness of whether or not God is black, or whether or not the male or female, or whether or not this scripture existed, or whether or not that scripture existed, and reasons not to believe in the Creator. Smoke screens. So because you don't feel that you received an accurate depiction of what God is supposed to look like, or what sex, or what race that he or she is supposed to be, you decide you're not going to follow the Creator. What makes you think the Creator has a sexual orientation? This is something that created all of us. What makes you think it's one or the other? Where are you getting that information from? Are you getting it from different books that were written by people who decided to create this image because that's all that they can envision? No. And people are literally destroying relationships over it. So hung up as to where this came from and where that came from. And don't get me wrong, I have no problem with you trying to find out where you come from, because when you find out where you come from, you learn about who you are and you get a better idea of where you're going. I have no problem with that. But don't idolize the idea of history all the time to the point where you are not following the doctrine that is being projected in that history. Don't get caught up on who wrote the rules as opposed to the rules themselves. Are you following them? And then you have this other group of people on the other end of the spectrum where they're not seeing things for what they are, period. See, it's all about balance in this life, I've noticed. It's about balance. There are some things you can quantify and there's some things that you can't. That's part of human experience. We're not going to have all the answers, and I'm okay with that. Because the truth is that we are not capable to receive some of the knowledge that is out there in this physical form. We're not. That's where faith steps in. That's where the connection with the higher power comes in. Because we all start going through things that we are not familiar with, cannot quantify, cannot control, cannot comprehend. That's where that relationship comes in. And you have people having the same arguments, so the battle of the sexes, the battle of the races, the battle of the economics, the battle of the politics, the same thing that's been going on 10 years before, 100 years before that, 100 years before that, 100 years before that. It's the same arguments, different people, different mediums. So what does that tell you? Don't have the argument in the first place, because it's not going to be a solution. There are two things that I was told as a child, and I think this is golden advice. When you are in a conversation with people, don't bring up religion and don't bring up politics, or else you're going to always have that one that's going to have a dissenting opinion, and that's going to create a conflict. It's going to create a conflict. So I try to avoid those conversations, and if somebody gets me into it, I try to ease my way out by either changing the subject or dismiss myself, because I've come to the fact that I am not going to perceive things the same way as the other person is. And some people are so diehard about their beliefs that they feel that everybody should feel the way they feel, and if you don't, something wrong with you. Talk about the weather. The weather occurs every day. Talk about how good the food is, how good the drink is, how great the music is, no matter where you are. But there's two areas. If you want to have a fight, you're going to guarantee to have a disagreement. Bring up religion and politics in a room full of people. Promise you. But it's the same arguments all the time. We're so focused on the messengers of the message that we're not paying attention to the message. Who cares where the message came from? If the message is correct, it's correct. And I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes the Creator purposefully places a message in a not so welcoming vessel just to see who's true about the game. Will place people in questionable situations, or what they deem as questionable, what they deem as confusion, just to see whether or not you're paying attention. We're going through spiritual warfare right now. And we are looking for people who have no problems picking up a sword and fighting. We won't have time for people that, oh, I don't have anything to say about that. Bury your head in the sand and turn around and say, I'm down with you. And when it's time to fight, you're hanging around in the back waiting for it. We don't have time for people to be trying to carry weak folks. We don't have time to be dealing with people who are weak. We don't have time for people who ain't trying to see the light. We don't have time for people who are asleep. Because that's what got us in these messes in the first place, dealing with half sleep, half woke, just half-assed people running things. And it's not right. And people are getting tired, and they're speaking out. And the people that are speaking out, they're being persecuted. But before they spoke out, they kind of knew it anyway. And you know what? Be careful if you're one of these people that want to persecute people for speaking out their truth, because that is showing the world that you might be guilty of some of the shit they're talking about. Be careful. With that being said, we'll go ahead and move on. Have a great day.